Hello. Good morning. Yeah, today I wanted to do a video about my time at university and what I learnt there. I studied English literature and drama, and I found that the material I was studying was very, very political, very, very left-wing, extreme, radical left-wing. So I just wanted to do a video to kind of go through a bit of the material that I was taught there, just to show people what we're being taught at our kind of mainstream universities with the mainstream academia, so you can see how extreme the mainstream is at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the English literature course today. So in first year, we went through lots of different topics to kind of give us a taster of lots of different things. And one of the taster topics was feminism. And I found a lot of the other taster topics to be kind of dull, you know, old stuff, things you couldn't really connect with, stuff hundreds of years old, like nature poetry and things. And then like things like feminism seem to kind of pop out at you as something a bit more interesting, something you could get your teeth into. Obviously something very current as well, something cool. You could see all the other students with their like feminist badges and their feminist haircuts and stuff, and like you thought, oh yeah, they're cool. And it was a very like social thing. You wanted to be cool, and doing feminism was cool. And you didn't want to say that you weren't a feminist, otherwise, you know, people would have a go at you. So you know, you had to be a very strong-minded, independent person to not get sucked into this political left-wing mayhem that was going on there, really. And I think I wasn't knowledgeable or quite strong enough at that time to see it for what it was and to go a different way, so I went along with it. And yeah, so I'm just going to go through some of the stuff basically. And I should say that I was one of the lucky ones, because when I left uni I was introduced to a whole new world of information, and like I was shown by people that this kind of like hard leftist stuff, that's not what, you know, life is all about, and this is actually very kind of poisonous propaganda. I was introduced to that. I was lucky. But a lot of the other people at uni, they're still in this mindset. Most people didn't ever come out of it, I don't think. So yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones, I think. Okay, so we're going to start off with somebody called Germaine Greer. So after I was introduced to it in first year, I was given the option to take it in third year as like a big module. And again, I thought a lot of the other options seemed pretty boring, so I went for this. I thought, that's cool, this is current. I'm finally going to learn how to be a real feminist, you know. So yeah, so I'm going to start off with someone called Germaine Greer. Okay, and just, I'm going to say there's going to, throughout this whole thing, there's going to be swearing, nasty language. That's the nature of this kind of stuff. Shocking material. Okay, so Germaine Greer from The Female Enuch, 1970. This is from second wave feminism. This piece is called Loathing and Disgust, which pretty much sums the whole thing up. What she's saying in this piece is that men loathe and hate women. Okay, so the first line is, women have very little idea of how much men hate them. And that's I could basically just stop there, but there's a couple more bits I'll include for that bit. So the whole article is her proving this point that men hate women, basically. So she's got little kind of quotes and stuff from the perspective of men about horrible sexual encounters where they just loathe the women and they're doing sexual things to them because they hate them, and there's all this disgust and everything. So there's a little bit here saying it's from the perspective of a man. It says, For when I'm finished, I'm finished. I want to strangle her right there in my bed and then go to sleep. Another thing about men and sex. So they see sex as their undoing, a vile servitude with women as its unwitting enforcers. Men do not themselves know the depth of their hatred. But we do, apparently. And then it's got lots of disgusting little passages from like horrible literature, some kind of snuff porn, I suppose. So like horrible pornographic, like murderous kind of crap. That's to prove her point that men hate us. Here's a little nasty bit. Again, from the point of view of a man. In a rage, I said, "You bitch," and I turned cold and rolled over and listened to the music. Sometimes during the night, as I would roll over face up, I would see her to my left, laying with her eyes wide open as if she were dead. This helped me go back to sleep. I don't like women. I despise them. I no longer try and please them. Okay, the man regards her, the woman, as a receptacle into which he has emptied his sperm, a kind of human spittoon, and turns from her in disgust. As long as man is at odds with his own sexuality, and as long as he keeps woman as a solely sexual creature, he will hate her. More nasty kind of snuff porn about women being murdered and raped. Then she starts talking about this thing called cunt hatred. So she says this a few times, her concept of cunt hatred. She says, if morgue doctors revealed what horrors end up on their slabs, we might have worse evidence of the survival of cunt hatred in our society. So it's dark stuff, and you can imagine like young girls at uni who may have had some like, you know, unpleasant experiences with men. Like we've all had kind of violent, horrible things happen to us occasionally, and then reading this kind of stuff just telling us that, you know, it wasn't an unlucky incident, anything bad that happened to you. Like this is a general thing. All, you know, men hate us and we can expect more violence. We're, you know, victims of serious loathing and disgust and violence, basically. So you can imagine this going in the minds of like young impressionable students that want to learn and want to like believe what they're being told because they're open to it and they're there, and like, you know, they're paying a lot of money to be there. That's going to be in, they're going to be in debt for like probably the rest of their life for going to this uni. So they're there for the information, you know. Like it takes a very strong-minded student to sit in class and go, this is all shite, you know. I wish I was like that then, but I wasn't. I was there to kind of like, we were invited to give a bit of criticism, and you know, we could express some kind of doubt about what was being said, but like, you know, the overriding thing that we were being taught is that yes, women are victims, and yes, feminism is absolutely essential, and men are ultimately the enemy. And I sometimes think that sometimes maybe they put in this more extreme stuff, like the really like diabolical extreme stuff, to make the slightly less diabolical extreme stuff seem a little bit more sane, maybe. So then you've got ideas that are still poisonous about, you know, dividing men and women, but they're not as extreme as this stuff, so they seem more, you know, acceptable. Just a thought. Anyway, oh, this is interesting. Women are never instrumental in crimes of sexual loathing, even when they are enacted upon the bodies of men. So yeah, even if a man is being abused, you know, a woman is never a victim, basically. That's just what they're saying. Yes, that's basically it for that one. Men hate us, lots of disgusting, like, violence. Okay, and then it goes on to a bit of Freud. So in this one, so Sigmund Freud, Femininity, 1932. I'll just say about this bit, which is they're talking about, I mean, this stuff is basically talking about women as babies and children and how our kind of mind develops. But it's, you know, if anyone's read any of Freud, it's, you know, it's very strange and perverted and just weird, a lot of it. Maybe there is some truth in some parts of it, but it's dodgy, in my opinion. So they talk a lot about, like, the Oedipus thing, how, like, the child is first sexual towards their mum, and then the girl becomes sexual towards their dad, but the little boy remains sexual towards their mum, this kind of stuff. And here he's saying that all women grow to hate their mothers. He says, we will now turn our interest onto the single question of what it is that brings this powerful attachment of the girl to her mother to an end. The turning away from the mother is accompanied by hostility. The attachment to the mother ends in hate. A hate of that kind may become very striking and last all through life. So that's just dark and unpleasant. And then he talks about the castration complex. So he's saying that little girls hate their mother because they blame their mother that they don't have a penis. He says, girls hold their mother responsible for their lack of a penis and do not forgive her for being there, thus put at a disadvantage. So he's saying, yeah, that women are at a disadvantage for not having this penis, and maybe from their point of view, and they blame their mum for that. And then he goes on to say that, like, women have this kind of penis envy throughout all their lives. So one cannot very well doubt the importance of envy for the penis. You may take it as an instance of male injustice if I assert that envy and jealousy play an even greater part in the mental life of women than of men. So that's enough of that bit. Okay, and then, so I'm obviously going through all this quite briefly, like, just little snippets, but then we go on to the kind of black feminist stuff. So this is the part in the university semester when suddenly the white girls in the class go from feeling like victims to feeling like oppressors again. Because it's like, yeah, you are a victim because you're a woman, but remember, you're still white. And the black girls in the class, they're the double victims. So they're creating conflict within the conflict. And that's, you know, that's the funny thing about all of these victim mentality politics, is because, like, every time they split society into these different characters of victim and oppressor, you still get victim and oppressor within those categories, because, like, there are several aspects to each person. So sex, race, sexuality, gender, or, you know, so, like, it starts getting messier and messier, and you get all of these, like, conflicts within the groups. So it's like, oh, we're all feminists, but then, oh wait, but you're a white one and I'm a black one, so we're not really on side, you know. So you can see why this kind of ideology is so toxic and silly, really, because it just doesn't stop dividing, basically. So yeah, this is just, so they're talking about how so this is written by a black woman called Cleonora Hudson-Weem's Africana Womanism, and she's saying Africana Womanism acknowledges societal gender problems as a critical issue to be resolved. However, it views feminism, the suggested alternative to these problems, as a sort of inverted white patriarchy, with the white feminist now in command and on top. So that's the gist of it, basically, and there's just several essays talking about how difficult it is to connect with white women because of all the racism and because of their privilege. And this is an interesting piece by another black woman, Doris Davenport, called The Pathology of Racism, A Conversation with Third World Women, 1981. And again, it's sort of like, you know, talking about the racism in white feminism. But it has this passage that I thought was interesting to include. It's basically this black author saying what black women think about white women. So it's this proper roasting of white women and white culture, which I'll read for you. So, okay, so this is by Doris Davenport, black author, black woman. Black women don't always tell the whole truth about and to white women. We know, for example, that we have at least 3 distinct areas of aversion to white women which affect how we perceive and deal with them: aesthetic, cultural, and social political. Aesthetically, we frequently find white women repulsive. That is, their skin colours are unaesthetic, ugly to some people. Their hair, stringy and straight, is unattractive. Their bodies, rather like misshapen lumps of clay or dough that somebody forgot to mould in certain areas. Furthermore, they have a strange body odour. Culturally, we see them as limited and bigoted. They can't dance. Their music is essentially undanceable to and unpleasant. Plus, they are totally saturated in Western or white American culture with little knowledge or respect for the cultures of third world people. That is, unless they intend to exploit it. The bland food of white folks is legendary. What they call partying is too low-keyed to even be awake. Awake is when you sit up all night around the casket of a dead person. I know. And it goes on and on. Socially, white people seem rather juvenile and tasteless. Politically, they are, especially the feminists, naive and myopic. Yeah, and then it says, the truth is that black people saw white women as some of the least enviable, ugliest, most despised and least respected people, period. So this is great feminism, isn't it? It's like absolutely roasting white women and just low blows basically. And it's funny because like in today's society, this is from obviously the 80s, but like the fact that we're studying this now at uni at a time when like it's so easy for people to be offended and you're supposed to be so careful and everything. But obviously, like, if it's against white people, then there's no issue at all. I mean, like, but yeah, it's funny that was included. So, just to kind of stir up a bit of that white hatred, I suppose, and like the white guilt and everything. Anyway, that's enough for semester 1. And that kind of stuff obviously did create quite a lot of tension in the class between like the black and white girls. I felt like, you know, you didn't know what to say in class to not piss off the black girls, and like there's all these like horrible, uncomfortable things where you're so uncomfortable with your identity, and it's just like, you know. Anyway, okay, so semester 2. There's obviously loads of other stuff we learned, but I'm just kind of going through the bits I thought most juicy. So Andrea Dworkin, Intercourse. This is from 1987. So this is a piece basically called, it's called Intercourse. It's basically about how intercourse is in itself a big violation. So yeah, that's it basically. Sex between a man and a woman is inherently a violent kind of abuse. So it says here, violation is a synonym for intercourse. So that's it basically. That's the whole message of the thing. Intercourse is a particular reality for women as an inferior class, and it has in it, as part of it, violation of boundaries, taking over, occupation, destruction of privacy, all of which are construed to be normal and also fundamental to continuing human existence. So it's saying it's construed to be normal and fundamental to continuing human existence. Yeah. Can an occupied people, physically occupied inside, internally invaded, be free? So it's saying, you know, women can't be free because we've got this penis inside of us. Women are still less significant, have less privacy, less integrity, less self-determination. This means that women have less freedom. Having less, being less, impoverished in freedom and rights. Women then inevitably have less self-respect than men have, and less respect than any human being needs to live a brave and honest life. Intercourse as domination battens on that awful absence of self-respect. So, you know, imagine you've got, girls aged like 20, 21, you know, really growing into women and finding themselves sexually, and reading this kind of stuff, you know, it's very, very, very toxic. So here we go. Entered, so by the penis. Entered, she finds herself depersonalized into a function and worth less to him than he is to himself. Okay, so then where all this is leading basically is to her, she's now going to tell us the solution to this. New reproductive technologies have changed and will continue to change the nature of the world. Intercourse is not necessary to existence anymore. So I assume she's talking about IVF and stuff. So all she's telling us is intercourse is an abuse, and it's all right because now we can do IVF and create new people. Okay, so this is the last one I'm going to talk about in this video. This is by Sheila Jeffries, 1990. Creating the Sexual Future. Okay, so this chapter's called Heterosexuality as an Institution. So what this piece is about is saying that heterosexuality is not a natural thing. It's not normal. It is like a social construct. It's an institution of oppression that society just kind of, brainwashes and forces us into. Okay. So it leads on quite well from the last piece about sex in itself being, a violation. Okay, so, and where it's going with this is talking about lesbianism and stuff like that. So like heterosexuality is the oppressive system, lesbianism is the way out of it. Okay, so it says here, in the current wave of feminism, feminist and lesbian theorists have seen heterosexuality as a political institution. They have rejected utterly the idea that it is normal or natural for women to relate sexually to men. They have used the term heterosexuality not just to mean sexual feelings, but to describe a political system. Similarly, lesbianism has been defined by feminists not just as a form of sexual attraction, but as a politics and a strategy for revolution. Okay. And I must tell you, there are quite a few girls who went into university as straight girls, seemingly, and came out very lesbian. Just an observation of mine. Right, so here it says, from the birth of lesbian feminism, from the birth of lesbian feminism, lesbians have asserted that lesbianism is a fundamental threat to male supremacy. We have asserted that lesbianism is a crucial strategy for women to undertake if they wish to end their subordination. The radical lesbian paper asserts that it is necessary for women to become lesbians if they are to develop self-love and work effectively for their own liberation. So you can't have self-love unless you're a lesbian. Then says, our energies must flow toward our sisters, not backward towards our oppressors. So we've got to have sex with the girls. Okay. Here it says, feminism at heart is a massive complaint. Lesbianism is the solution. Until all women are lesbians, there will be no true political revolution. Feminists who still sleep with the man are delivering their most vital energies to the oppressor. So it's strong stuff. Okay, so this is going a bit more into the heterosexual couple and why that is a oppressive system. The heterosexual couple is the basic unit of the political structure of male supremacy. In it, each individual woman comes under the control of an individual man. It is more efficient by far than keeping women in ghettos, camps, or even sheds at the bottom of the garden. In the couple, love and sex are used to obscure the realities of oppression, to prevent women identifying with each other in order to revolt, and from identifying their man as part of the enemy. Any woman who takes part in a heterosexual couple helps to shore up male supremacy by making its foundations stronger. Yeah, so it's basically saying that our relationship with men is like worse than being in a camp or a ghetto for women. Because, you know, we're not even aware, we're so blinded by love and things that we're not aware of how oppressed we are, and we're shackled by our love and our attraction, and it gives the illusion of freedom and love, but it's really, you know, it's really worse than a concentration camp. Okay. So, yes, she describes, this is a writer of this article, she describes heterosexuality as being a political system of oppression like capitalism or the caste system, designed to produce a class of inferior status which can be exploited for the benefit of the ruler class and maintained by a variety of forces, including both physical violence and false consciousness. So yeah, they're even likening it there to the caste system in India. Yeah, saying that the relationship between man and woman is akin to that sort of system. Okay, this is the last line I'm going to read. From heterosexuality flow all other oppressions. I was thinking maybe they mean flow all other life. Because, yeah. So, yeah, that's all the quotes I'm going to read. So, yeah, now you can see what we were being taught. And yeah, it's really amazing that that is the mainstream academic education these days. And they hook innocent teenagers like myself by, you know, I'm like, oh, I like reading books. I'll go and study English literature. I like books, you know, I like to read novels and stuff. I like to read my mum's novels she had on the shelf. So I was like, I do English. And then I end up getting told I've got to be a lesbian. So it's so easy. Everyone's being funneled into this like Marxist propaganda machine. Not everyone, but people with an interest in, you know, ideas, people who like to do humanity subjects, they all get taken down this path. And like I was saying, not everyone comes out of it. A lot of people stick in that mindset. Yeah, and you know, you could say, well, this is an overview of feminist literature. So you're studying feminism, you're going to get taught this literature. But there's a reason why this literature became promoted as famous feminist literature at the time. Like, that's not a coincidence. We look into things like the Frankfurt School, you find out how and why certain ideas became promoted into these huge movements. Like, you know, people writing this kind of stuff, they need the funding, they need the promotion. It doesn't just happen organically that kind of poisonous stuff like this becomes so huge and mainstream. Like, you know, they need serious backup and support, and there's a reason why they get that serious backup and support. You know, it's the agendas that they're pushing. Yeah, so, and you know, yeah, students are there to learn. Students want to learn. They're open to it. And like in the seminars when we're talking to each other, I remember it often just turned into like a bit of a women's circle, really, where we were discussing all kinds of like horrible stuff that men had done to us. And you know, it's sad that we'd had those experiences, but this kind of content was really, really provoking us on these things and really making it into something huge, much bigger than those experiences should have been. Like, you know, yeah, we do suffer unfortunate things, but you can't taint all of men with that. It's just not a way to live. And yeah, so that's it really. I mean, it's a shame that so many women get turned against half of humanity, all the men. And hopefully, like, you know, hopefully one day we'll be teaching women stuff that's, well, everyone, but if we want to have stuff particularly for women, we can be teaching them stuff that like fulfills them, makes them feel good. Like, that's what's great about learning, is when you're like, you have that feeling when you're like, yeah, you know, this knowledge makes me feel empowered. Like, this knowledge doesn't make you feel empowered. It's supposed to be feminism, which is supposed to be empowering. It's not empowering. It makes you feel disempowered and tortured and victimized, and makes you aggressive and ready to like smack any lad in the face that fucking gives you a look. You know, like, you're ready to attack because you feel like you're the victim. That's what victim mentality does. It makes you ready to attack at any moment. In defense, you feel like you're acting out of self-defense because you've been taught all of this stuff that makes you feel like you need to defend yourself all the time. But really, you turn into an aggressive kind of little beast, and you're so emotional because you've been like, what I think is that people, they latch on to people's personal traumas. So lots of girls this age have a few traumas that have happened to them with men. You know, opposite sex, lots of stuff happens with the opposite sex, a lot of good and a lot of bad. So they latch on to those personal traumas and back it up with all this poisonous information, which means it's very hard to let go of those traumas until you can let go and reject all of this propaganda, which is very difficult to do when it's so mainstream and so huge these days. So I was lucky enough to be introduced to people like Mark Passio, who deconstructed the whole feminist ideology. And that was very painful for me because, yeah, my personal traumas had been linked to all of this ideological stuff. So if anyone was questioning me on these feminist ideas, I'm feeling the pain of my traumas that I've experienced with men. That's what happens. And I feel like that's the fusion that happens. Inside of you, as a young woman, you connect your trauma with this propaganda. So anytime this is why people are so touchy and volatile about this kind of content. Anytime you're questioning a young feminist about feminist ideas, they're feeling the pain of their trauma and any abuse that they might have experienced. So I was lucky enough to be able to let go of the trauma and reject the ideology and feel free, basically. And I'm so hoping that'll happen to more people. Because, there are so many things you can learn that actually help you in your life, teach you about the world. It's such an amazing and vast world that we're in, that there's unlimited content for us to learn about. So many things we can learn that will help us, that will uplift us, that will help us to be productive, creative, decent individuals. I mean, the thing is with humanity subjects is that they tend to just be about perspectives. And then obviously the people in power choose which perspective we all get propagandized with. And that's how maybe 1 or 10 or however many poisoned minds, like the people writing this stuff, they're just that one person, but their poisoned mindset is given the opportunity to poison so many other young minds. And yeah, I think, like, if you really wanted to have female specific education, then teach them about women's stuff, which I think is kind of about women's anatomy. I had an amazing time learning about childbirth, pregnancy, breastfeeding when I was pregnant. None of that information was revealed to me throughout my education. And you might say, well, not everyone wants to have a baby. Well, not everyone wants to be a lesbian, but that's mainstream education. And it doesn't just have to be about being a mother. It's also just about being a woman, the menstrual cycle, how we link with the moon, how that links to astrology. There's so many deep spiritual stuff about being a woman that you can learn about if you want to learn female specific stuff. But all the rest of the stuff to learn about the world, men and women can both learn that together, and not be turned against each other and divided. So yeah, that would be great. So thanks for watching, and toodaloo.